Welcome to the A684 in Yorkshire. At the moment it's a busy old road full of cars, but in a few hours, just after lunchtime, it's going to be full of bikes because this is where the World Championship time trial course is happening. And I've just driven up from Clevedon. Last night, had a committee meeting, drove up, decided to drive up to Yorkshire to come and watch the race. I parked in a lay-by, pretty much in the middle of nowhere, waiting to see the world's best time trialists ride past and give it their best shot. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to head into Northallerton, which is where the start is, and see if I can find some bike porn and shoot some B-roll. But I've no idea just how much is going on actually in the town at the minute, because it's quite a long time before the race start. But I want to make sure I get back to this spot later, because like any good time trialist, I Google Earthed the best spot on the course really, where there's a slight rise just to my left where they're going to come up and maybe slow down a little bit, but I've got a really good view. Yeah, that's the plan for today. We're heading to Northallerton, see if we can shoot some B-roll, come back here and watch the race go by. I was going to shoot a video about, as a follow-up to the video I made last week about stride length and cadence, but I think this is going to make a much better one. I'm all prepared, got everything ready to go. Even got my iPad on the back of the headrest here, so I can get all the race reports from Eurosport via my phone. Also got good 4G here, so another little bit of kind of reconnaissance done. I feel like I'm one of the team director sportives. Anyway, it's time to go and get a coffee in Northallerton. Let's see what we can find. Start that way, guys. The start. Thank you. How does it work? Because obviously, usually when they're racing for their teams, they've got team cars.
They've got team cars, plus they've got, if they book an additional car, then it's got to be one of their team that's actually driving it when it's on the course.
Okay, so we
just deliver them to the teams.
Oh, I see.
And once the race is on, it's got to be a UCI certified driver to drive the course.
So will you sit in the car with them then, or you literally...
Allegedly, yes.
First question, Alex. How special it is here in the Yorkshire?
Yeah, it's massive. It's like a once in a career opportunity. So just going to make the most of it and take it all in and enjoy it. And I'd stick around for a couple of days afterwards as well.
What can you tell us about the course?
It's nice. It's very British. There's a bit of everything. You know, a couple of climbs. You know, it's not flat, but there's flat sections. The climbs are not. They're there, but they're not too significant. Sort of lean more towards the favour of the climbers, and weather, who knows what's going to happen.
And for you, what's the goal today?
Just get everything out, just make sure there's nothing left at the end.
No goal in numbers, no pressure here, just to have fun.
Everyone on the start line wants to win. Yeah, if I finish 5th, it'll be like, that's a nice result, but what was the gap to 4th? And I finish 20th, I'll be looking at the gap to 19th. It's nature of being a racer.
Thank you very much. Best of luck.
Good luck, Alex. Thank you. That was spot on timing. Managed to just catch Alex Dowsett arriving at the Ineos bus. That's one of the confusing things about Worlds, is that each World team looks after a different nation. Obviously Ineos is based in the UK, so look after the GB riders, which obviously Dowsett is, and obviously he's an ex-Ineos or ex-Sky rider. Borrow looking after the German squad, Sunweb looking after the Danish squad, so it makes it a bit interesting trying to find where the riders are going to be. Anyway, I'm running out of time to get back to the van, so I'm going to hot foot it back down the course and get my ass back to the van. So this is the last view of where the team buses are. There I am. Well, there Yo-Yo our van is. Anyway, so okay, well, I'm back. I did do a little vlog on the way home in the van, but I was gibbering incomprehensibly like I usually do because I was so tired from just the crazy journey that I'd had. So I thought I'd actually come back and do it the next day. I've had a shave, I've got myself showered, and yeah, here are my thoughts on what happened yesterday. So the first thing is I found myself in the team buses. I managed to have a wander around. The first thing that struck me that was a little bit unusual and I wasn't quite expecting, having never been to a Worlds before, is I'm pretty used to wandering around the team buses and seeing all of the Movistar bikes and the riders, or the Ineos riders, Sunweb and all the rest of it. But of course, first of all, there aren't so many riders for a time trial because you don't have teams of 8 or 9. And I wasn't aware of this, but each team actually takes on the nations riders because the riders are riding for national championships rather than for trade teams. Each team takes on a rider from a different country. So for example, Sunweb were looking after the Danish riders, Movistar had Spain, Ineos looked after the British riders. So it was a bit odd with the Ineos bus. You're so used to seeing all these Pinarellos kind of lined up outside, and actually all we had was the Katusha Canyons from Alex Dowsett and John Archibald's Ribbles outside the front of the Ineos bus. Who else had what? Team Dimension Data, I can't remember who, they had 2 teams, I can't remember who they had, but I spoke to the mechanic. Which nation's bikes are you looking after today? So which country's bikes?
After South Africa and Colombia.
Brilliant. And so how many bikes have you got to look after all day?
2 bikes.
2. You looking forward to it? Yeah. Thanks, dude. Anyway, so that was a little bit strange wandering around. So trying to find different bike riders and their bikes was a bit of a challenge. What I did find was Rowan Dennis's blacked out BMC that he rode. Now he rides for Byron Merida, but obviously some of you will know that he had big problems during the Tour de France. He actually left on the eve of the Tour de France time trial, which he would have ridden in his World Championships kit, citing issues with his kit and the bikes, etc. He is still riding for Byron Merida, but he was actually riding a BMC bike and a cask helmet yesterday, and obviously went on to win. There were also these amazing cool fans that was spraying water. Now, I'm not sure which team it was that had these because it was a bit ambiguous, but I think it was the Dutch squad or the Belgian squad from what I could work out. But these huge fans, and anyone that's been on a turbo will know that it gets so hot on a turbo. Now, having a fan isn't that unusual, but having these sprays, these jets of water, is something that I've never come across before. There was also a bit of discrepancy between some of the bikes. Some of them were really aeroed up. They had shrink wrap over some of the sensors, all that kind of stuff. I noticed that Castro Viejo also had those titanium moulded armrests on his bike, on his Pinarello, that Movistar were looking after. And generally just the simplicity of the bikes. I think it's one of the things that I love about time trialing is the simplicity. So that brings us on to the race. I shot a ton of footage. I'm actually going to make a video of all of the riders that I filmed. I set up a camera that was directly across the road running at 100 frames per second that captured, I think I missed 3 riders. I'm going to put a video for that, and when I do, I'll put a link up here to it. It'll probably take me a week or so to do that. All you TT nerds out there, you can compare the TT positions pretty much between all of the riders here. But I found a great spot just at the top of a rise, just before a slight descent, about 3 kilometers into the ride. Everyone looked super strong at this point in the race, obviously, but it was great to see their difference in positions, their difference in cadence, and also, weirdly, their difference in road positions. Most of them were on the far side of the road as they came around past me, but only 3 of them were on my side of the road. I'm not sure why that was. It wasn't on a particular curve, but I'd say, you know, out of all the riders, there was only 3 or 4 that were on the opposite side of the road. So it's interesting, there wasn't much in the way of wind that would have caused that, and there wasn't much in the way of curves in the road that would have made them kind of come to that position. So it was an interesting thing to kind of observe. Anyway, so wrapping it all up, was it worth driving up there? It was pretty much 24 hours that I left at 8:30 on the Tuesday night, and I got back on Wednesday night at 8:30. About best part of 9 hours driving to get up there to watch it. It was absolutely fantastic. So let's go through who won. So Rowan Dennis won in kind of the opposite way to Jens Voigt's famous shut up legs. I think pretty much managed to shut up the critics with his legs, but also his heart. I know that he's struggled, and he's talked about this a lot, about his kind of mental kind of preparation for racing. And I tell you what, it was an impressive win. The next person to talk about is Remco Evenepoel. He's only 19 years old. He came in second place. I don't think anyone that follows cycling will find Remco Evenepoel a particularly surprising character to have come in second place, but I think the fact that he came in second place is definitely a surprise in terms of the amount of time he's been around, and he seems to be quite a mature and versatile rider. He could be, I mean, I know people have said this many times before, but he genuinely could be the next Merckx. I think if he loses a little bit of weight and trims down that time trialing ability he has, I think he's going to be a Grand Tour winner for years to come. As we know, that's kind of the format for most time trialists now, is that they tend to lose weight, learn how to climb, get that ability, and then the GC stuff is their oyster from there on in. But what about the man that I came to see? Well, just to give you a bit of background on why I'd done all this, Alex Dowsett posted a picture, I think on Monday night, about doing the recon for the TTs. I've been watching the videos that he and his girlfriend Chanel put up. They're brilliant to watch. I love YouTube videos anyway, so watching their cycling videos and watching their kind of vlog stuff really impresses me, and I really like the way they go about stuff. If you want to know where to find that, I'll put a link below. It's called Thighs Club. They're both brilliant characters, and I've always been a big fan of Alex Dowsett. I like the way that he's so British about the way he goes about stuff. He never comes across as the kind of most media friendly sometimes, but I think in a way that's even more endearing. He's got an enigmatic character, but my God, is he a time trialist. So Alex is not necessarily the most kind of media friendly person. I think he's a very honest person, and he sort of comes across as being quite enigmatic, and I've got a huge amount of time for that when we're so used to kind of all these media trained athletes that are pretty much always saying the same thing. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and I've got a huge amount of respect for that. In the same way he's quite a British character, he's also a very British kind of rider. He's a time trial specialist. I know there are issues with him possibly having issues with the Olympics for the time trial, because you have to be a member of the road racing team, and he wants to focus on the TT. He's quite outspoken about stuff, but my God, is he one hell of a time trialist and a brilliant a rider in general on the track. He's got the world hour record, or a former world hour record holder as well. So how did he get on? He smashed it. He came in 5th place. In the interview, he was talking about the thing he was interested in was the gap between him and the next rider up, and looking at that. Well, he came in 5th place, but that was only 7 seconds off of making it onto the podium. I felt honoured to have actually been able to get up there and watch the whole race anyway, but to have been part of kind of watching his preparation on YouTube, deciding at the last minute to drive all the way up there, screaming at him for about 8 seconds as he went kind of flying past me, looking really strong, and then him coming in 5th place. Well, you know what? It's the same stuff that I fell in love with cycling when I was in, 9 or 10 years old back in the mid-80s. What I fell in love with was the visual of it, I guess. The simplicity, the purity, and the brutality, really, of time trialing. Time trials are brutal and simple and pure. It doesn't matter if you're riding a 30-minute 10-miler or if you're riding under 20 minutes. It's the same for everybody, and you're racing yourself and you're putting yourself on the absolute limit. And there are so many factors that come into that: your pacing, your equipment, your aero position, your approach to the parkour, that it just makes it such a brilliant thing to kind of be part of. So anyway, that kind of wraps it up. Like I said, I've got some other videos that I'm going to put out there attached to this. I will go back to talking about stride lengths and kind of pacing, but this was something that I wanted to drop in as my video for this week, just because it's what I did this week. Have a great one. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.